This is the first section of notes for biology honors. So we're starting Unit 1, which is an introduction to biological science. And this section of notes is the first section of Unit 1, what is biology? So you'll see in my notes, I always put a number in front of them. 1, the first number, stands for the unit, so this is Unit 1. And then the number after the decimal point is the section. So this is Unit 1, Section 1. What is biology? Biology can be defined as the natural science concerned with the study of life and living organisms. There are fundamental concepts for modern biology, and these are some of the things, the topics that we're going to be discussing as we go through this course. One of the primary focuses of modern biology is that the cell is the basic unit of life. Cells are typically microscopic, meaning you cannot see them, but they're the basic unit of life. They're what make us up. In this picture, you can see this is a simple human cheek cell. Not much to it, but yet if we look at its the chemistry and the stuff going on inside that cell, it's a very dynamic little factory that allows life to exist. The second fundamental concept of biology is that new species and inherited traits are the product of evolutionary change. So we'll talk more about that in detail and what that means at some point in this class. Also, that genes are the basic unit of heredity, and genes are found on chromosomes, which are found inside the nucleus of cells. So if we were to magnify this nucleus of this cheek cell inside, we would see these things known as chromosomes, which are basically condensed DNA, and on that you would find your genes. Another concept of biology is that an organism will regulate its internal environment to maintain a stable condition. So that's many of our behaviors that we have, maintaining an internal body temperature, you know, is all part of what we're talking about here. When you get cold, you shiver to create body heat so that you maintain a stable internal environment. And also that living organisms consume and transform energy. And this is all part of what we call ecology. We'll be studying ecology later on in the year, but we'll, of course, touch on all of these concepts and many more in this class. Now, if we just focus on some of the subdisciplines of biology, in other words, what the study involves, one of the things we'll be studying early on in this class is what we call biochemistry. Biochemistry is simply the chemicals that are important to life. Now, the chemical formula that you see here in the middle of your screen is a chemical known as ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. This is the molecule that stores and allows us to use energy to power the processes of life. So this is a pretty important little molecule, and we'll talk more about that later. Another subdiscipline of biology is molecular biology, and this focuses specifically on DNA and the genes that are found within the genetic code. Also, we have cellular biology, which deals primarily with cells such as the nerve cells or neurons that you see in this picture here. Another subdiscipline of biology is physiology, which is how organisms work, how the actual anatomical parts and chemicals all work together to create a living organism. And then, as I mentioned before, we have ecology, which is primarily how living organisms interact with their environment. Now, in order to really understand or study biology, we first need to understand what life is. What is it that makes something a living organism? Well, there are 7 characteristics of living organisms. The first one is what we call homeostasis, which is the regulation of the internal environment to maintain a constant state. I referenced our body temperature. Humans maintain a constant internal body temperature of 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, or 37 degrees Celsius. If we look at the picture of this type of insect here, this is actually called a katydid, which is relative of the grasshopper. It's going to maintain homeostasis by moving around to different areas to maintain a temperature. It has its antennae to sense the environment so that it can know where it needs to go to maintain homeostasis. Eating and other things are also involved in helping this insect maintain a constant internal state as far as storing sugar for energy and so forth. Another characteristic of life is organization. Uh, we talked about the basic unit of life is a cell. And this organism, this katydid, is made of many millions of cells that make up its different structures. So that shows cellular organization. A third characteristic of life is metabolism. And metabolism can simply be defined as the chemical reactions going on inside an organism. So there has to be some sort of mechanism to convert chemicals into energy and cellular components. And when these components are being made, we call this anabolism. If they're being decomposed or broken down, we call that catabolism. Related to that is growth and development. If an organism is increasing in size in all of its parts, rather than just simply accumulating matter, then we call that growth and development. Usually with growth and development, anabolism, or the building up of cellular components, is greater than catabolism, or breaking those components down. And that's why an organism will grow from a small, and if we look at human terms, a small infant to a large adult. It will grow and even change or develop over time. Characteristics of life also include adaptation, the ability to change over time in response to the environment. We typically see this in populations of organisms rather than individuals. We'll talk more about that later. Response to stimuli or response to a stimulus is an important characteristic of life. This katydid in the picture here will respond to a feeling of hunger by eating the leaf, or perhaps if it feels that there's a lot of movement near it or something approaching it, it will fly away. So we have various responses to stimuli, to different stimuli. For example, your pupils dilate when lights are turned off so that you can see better. So a response can take many forms, as it says here on this slide, from the contraction of a unicellular organism to a chemical, to the many different complex reactions that involve many senses in multicellular organisms. Reproduction is another characteristic of life. All living things must have the ability to produce new individual organisms. And that's the case with this katydid, it's the case with you as a human being. You will have the ability to produce new offspring. So that does it for this section of notes. Again, if you missed any parts, go ahead back and you can just pause the video on the particular slide so that you can make sure to write down all the information.